Hey guys, welcome to the third and probably, hopefully, last episode of this 1973 TBI TR6. We are setting up this throttle body injection system by Rick Patton called the Patton Machine, and we are almost there. We were just expecting some parts to arrive so we can finish the setup, and we have them all ready. So without further ado, let's get crack-a-lacking. Alright, so based on the comments that you left under the previous two videos, I see that there's controversial opinions here, and that's normal, and we can discuss what the pros and the cons of this are at the end of the video. Now I don't want to waste your time, I just want to mention something here for the people who believe that this is very unreliable system because of all the problems that we're having here. You have to understand that this system has not been on the road for more than 300 kilometers after it's been installed on this freshly rebuilt engine. We're not trying to fix problems here that occurred while a normal use of the car. We're trying to fix some installation problems and tune-up problems of the system. Obviously it wasn't installed properly and it wasn't set up properly and all that. So that's what we're doing. We're not fixing something that's broken. So I don't think that because we have these issues, this means that the system is unreliable. I think the shop that installed it is unreliable. Anyway, we're almost at the finish line here with the things that we need to fix. One of them is the temperature sensor, and the other one is the O-rings on the fuel injectors, and maybe we can touch also a little bit on the fuel pressure gauge, which we haven't mentioned yet. But if you haven't seen the first two episodes of this series, maybe you should watch that before you come here and make yourself familiar with what we're trying to achieve here, because I don't want to waste any more time and go through everything. Let's get crack-a-lacking with the temperature sensor. Now, let's see what we got here. So if you remember, our temperature sensor was reading too low because of the way it is set up. The fitting, the brass fitting that it is mounted to, is not getting hot enough. That's why Rick Patton is gonna start selling, actually. He hasn't started selling officially this yet. It is a thermostat riser block. We're gonna take the thermostat housing apart, we're gonna take the thermostat out, we're gonna put this block in, we're gonna put the thermostat in this groove here, and we're going to put the thermostat cover, and then we're going to use these longer bolts that Rick sends as well with the kit. And of course it comes with two gaskets, one for under the block and one above the block, and we're gonna have these two ports for our sensor and one extra port that if you want to use, you can use for your cooling fan sensor, for example, and or something else by your choice. But if you don't want to use it, Rick also sends a plug for it. In this case, we're going to use the plug and we're going to use only one port. So that's the entire kit that Rick is sending. Like I said, the kit is not officially on his website yet, but if you need one in a hurry, you can order it directly to him on rick@pattonmachine.com, and he can send you one. The cost is $80 plus $12 shipping for US. For other countries he hasn't figured out yet, but if you want one, you can talk to him. Soon it's going to be on the website, but for now you have to order it directly to his email. He said that he's going to start offering it also for Spitfire and GT6 and MG, I believe, but for now this is available only for TR6. So without further ado, let's install it quickly and see how that's going to affect our readings. Okay, so our engine is cold, and wow, that was loose. And this here is the highest spot of our cooling system, right? So I'm hoping that we're not gonna leak too much coolant, but you never know. There's no way to keep it clean, unfortunately. If we make a mess, we're gonna have to clean it after. Okay, so I'm gonna have to put gasket maker on the block, but I don't want to put on the entire block because not entire block is covered by the gasket, so I'm just gonna mark where to put. So I'm gonna use my favorite Permatex Forma gasket, aviation Forma gasket. Some people don't like it, I love it. It's my favorite gasket maker. I put it on no paper gaskets. Of course, I don't use it for head gaskets or intake manifolds and stuff like that, but the paper gaskets, I like it for that. So we're gonna put also on both sides of the gasket. I'm just gonna put now here and I'm gonna flip it. Now the block goes like this with this groove to the top because this is the groove for the thermostat. And now here, of course, the thermostat goes first and it goes in this direction, and then the gasket. This time I put already gasket maker on that side of the gasket. And then the housing cover goes on top. And we have a longer and a shorter boat. Of course, the longer one goes on this side. Okay, it's gonna be tricky now. Line up all the holes on all the blocks, covers, gaskets. Okay, there is a torque spec here, which I believe is about 20 foot-pounds, but my elbow is calibrated already to that. Okay, and before this dries out, I'm gonna bring some acetone maybe and clean whatever oozed, because I don't like that. Now, I know that you're asking now if this is gonna clear the bonnet, and I have the same question, so let's see. Now this is a little bit too short, so I might loosen these and just get a little bit of allowance from here and there. Now this clamp, we're gonna make sure that we don't leave the screw sticking out. It's hidden on the side because I'm really worried about clearance issues here. I'm sure that Rick already did his due diligence on that subject, but you know, we want to make sure that it is not, this is not sticking up. Okay, so I'm gonna take the sensor out of here and install it here. I'm gonna plug the other hole. We're gonna use thread sealant, and here we're gonna have to figure out something else now. I'm gonna have to remove this fitting, and let me see if I have a hose for here. Okay, so remove that fitting, replace this with a brand new hose here, install the plug. I use this Permatex thread sealant, so the plug and the sensor are installed. I'm just gonna wipe it. I cleaned it up a little bit because a lot of this sealant was oozing out, so I cleaned it up again. So I'm gonna dry it out now, and we're gonna start the car to check for leaks, and then we're gonna proceed with the injectors. All right, we warmed it up and it doesn't leak, which is great. Now I'm thinking maybe we shouldn't have warmed it up completely because I wanted to go for a test drive with the laptop hooked up after we do all the corrections here, and I wanted to start recording from code. But anyway, it's gonna cool down a little while we change the O-rings on the injectors and also touch a little bit the fuel pressure regulator, or the gauge actually. So let's see what's under the covers here. I've never taken apart these. I've never seen the actual injectors. So I mentioned this in the first episode that these are actually decorative covers, but if you want to keep the original look of the car, you can actually install your original domes from the Zenith Stromberg carburetors, and that's gonna keep the original look. I think you might need to shorten a little bit the top of the dome so it doesn't hit the bonnet. I'm not really sure about that. Okay, so here's our injector. Oops. So this is the injector, and Rick's instructions are about the small O-ring at the bottom to lubricate it with a little bit of ATF, automatic transmission fluid, which I have here in this syringe, because I keep it in this syringe because I use it for the dashpots of the Zenith Strombergs and SU carburetors. So we're gonna use that for the bottom O-ring. I'll show you in a second here, but there was a lot of fuel here. So what he says is lubricate the O-ring with ATF and install it in the housing, and then insert the injector with twisting motion. Otherwise, if you install it in the injector first, you might damage the O-ring as it goes inside its slot there. So let's take this one out. Doesn't look like it's been damaged, but we're gonna replace it anyway. So let's take this one out as well. Here Rick sent us a few new ones, so a little bit of ATF on it. I'm gonna make sure that it's seated there. It's not sticking out of its groove there, like this. Now the other one, let's lubricate it as well. And now with gentle twisting motion. Okay. I think that's good. Let's install the retainer now. Okay, and before we tighten it, let's plug it in so we can adjust the angle. Oh, moving the whole housing, whole adapter. Okay, so we want to make sure that we don't pinch the cable, right? And now we can finish tightening the screws and put back the decorative cover. So I'm guessing it was normal that there was fuel above the injector, because that's where it is supplied by these holes, right? And it just sits on top of the injector and it's under pressure there. So when the injector opens, that's when it goes through. But Rick was thinking that maybe fuel was seeping through around the bottom O-ring, the smaller one. So that's why it was dieseling in the end, maybe. I don't know, we'll see now. Because there's still pressure, right? When we turn the ignition off, when we turn the car off, there's still pressure, and that pressure might push a little bit more fuel around the O-ring. Okay, so I'm gonna do the same on the other one, and we're gonna go from there. Okay, the O-rings on the other side are replaced as well. So let's start the engine. I'm assuming now it is a little bit flooded because all the fuel that was above the injectors was dumped in. So let's see how it's gonna perform for a second. Okay, didn't diesel now. So I think Rick was right. So you see, Rick was able to diagnose it from a distance. Alright, so now I'm gonna put the air cleaners and we have one little job to finish. Okay, the air cleaners are on, and the last job that I was talking about is about this fuel pressure gauge. Now, in the instructions on the website pattonmachine.com, it says that because this gauge is liquid filled, it needs to be mounted with this rubber plug on top, and also this plug needs to be pierced, which is gonna act as a little vent, and that's gonna allow for this liquid to expand and contract with the temperature changes. So obviously whoever installed it didn't follow these instructions, so let's correct that. Okay, I was able to turn it back a little bit, and I hope this won't introduce leaks from here. We're gonna start the car and we'll see, but before we do that, I wanna pierce it. And to pierce it, I don't wanna pierce it like that because it says that there's a membrane or something, diaphragm behind it. So I'm gonna actually, I can take it out. Okay, I don't know what's there, but we don't want to damage it. So let's drill a hole through it. But this hole is gonna close after, you see? Let's see, I don't know. Hopefully that's gonna be enough. Let's put it back on. There you go. So what's left now is to hook up the laptop again and go for a test drive. What does it say here for battery? 36 minutes to full charge. Okay, this laptop is, the battery is not very good, of course, because it's 21 years old. So it's gonna last for like 20 minutes, but we have to fully charge it. So until it charges, let's take a look at what the sensors are gonna show now that we moved the temperature sensor, right? So let's start the car. Alright, so it looks like the temperature sensor is showing even here, where in the new location, about 170 Fahrenheit, which I'm assuming is going to change as we start driving the car, because it's going to increase the flow, I believe. Anyway, what else? You can see the oxygen sensor. We haven't discussed that yet, but the oxygen sensor measures between 0 and 0.9 volts. And when it is 0.45, which is right in the middle of the range, it means that the mixture is perfect. Anything below 0.45 is lean, anything above 0.45 means rich. So you see that it constantly changes, which means that when it shows before 0.45 it says it's lean, so it passes that information to the ECU, and the ECU makes the mixture richer. Then all of a sudden we go to 0.78, let's say, that's rich. So now the sensor sends the information to the ECU and says, now we're going too high, and the computer reduces it. So they constantly talk to each other and change the mixture, so it averages at the perfect mixture. If it stays always under 0.45 or above, that means that something is wrong. But if it goes under and above and it changes all the time, this means that it is doing what it's supposed to be doing. You see, as it's idling, the temperature actually goes down a little. Let me rev it a little bit. Okay, it's still there. It's 160, 169, 170 Fahrenheit. So I guess that's the normal working temperature of this car. Okay, let's go for a test drive. Alright, so I just disconnected the battery. I don't know why it's idling so high now. Wow, look at the IAC valve is 64. Let's wait for it to go down. There you go, it's going down. Maybe it does that every time you start the car, I don't know. Anyway, I disconnected the battery for 15 seconds, connected it again, so now we are ready to start going. But it is like, okay, just close the idle air control valve. There you go, it's closing now. Anyway, let's go to configuration, no configuration, data logger. We select the sensor data and we hit start and go to BLM, and it already started recording something here. Now I have to back up from my driveway, so give me a second. Okay. I wish we had a setup where I could put the computer and the camera and start driving, but I can't, so that's how it's gonna be. Okay, I'm gonna push it a little bit now here in the beginning, and then we're gonna go on the highway, and then we're gonna go back on country roads, and we're gonna go through some neighborhoods. We're gonna choose different driving styles here and there. But now in the beginning, because I'm going uphill here, I'm gonna push it a little bit. Just came off the highway, and I think we were able to fill up lots of these low bottom left cells. These are where we have high RPM and low vacuum, which means that we are in a load, I believe. So I don't know, I'm trying to fill up the center now of the screen, where we have medium RPM and medium load on the car. So medium vacuum. Where we have lots of stop signs and stuff like that, so hopefully that's numbers look pretty good. They are all close to 128. They need to be close to 128, and they are. If they're low, then lower than 128 means we're running lean. Okay. Lower than 128 means we're running lean. Higher than 128 we're running rich. But I think we're pretty good here. Up. Okay, so that's it. I arrived at a store. I need to go inside to buy something, and we're gonna end it here. So here we're gonna say save table. Okay, and then we're gonna say stop. That's gonna save our log file, and that's it. Didn't diesel, right? That's good. Okay, so I don't know what this means, if it is good or bad. We filled lots of cells this time. Here in the middle though, everything is way below 128, which is making me think that we are running pretty lean here in the mid-range, but I don't know, maybe that's normal. We're gonna send this to Rick, and we're gonna wait for his comments. Alright, so we had a good drive. I don't know what the log files are gonna show, but we're gonna send them to Rick and we'll see what he's gonna say about it. In the meantime, the owner is gonna pick up the car now. There were some other things that had to be fixed, and I fixed all those. The car is drivable now, so he's gonna take it, and we'll see what Rick is gonna say. And if we require more tune-up, eventually David is going to bring the car back again, but for now he's going to pick it up, so that's where we're going to leave it. Now, I promised you at the end of this episode to talk a little bit about the pros and cons of this system. I know that there's many people who are like, the magic of the classic cars is that they are not complicated and they don't have all this modern stuff installed. And I agree with that, but just the same way I agree with that, I agree also with other people who say, well, I like my car and I like the way it looks, but I want a fast, reliable car with modern stuff in it, but I like the old look. So there's different schools, guys, and I respect everybody's opinion. And like we say in Bulgaria, there's passengers for all trains. So if you don't like it, nobody's forcing you to do it to your car, but let the other people who like that idea to be able to do it, right? So for me, on my channel, there wasn't something like that, and I wanted to have it on the channel. And since I have multiple cars, I don't mind having one with that system. I don't want to open a big discussion here whether it is appropriate to have a TBI system on the classic car or not. And if it's not your cup of tea, that's fine, but just understand that there's other people that they like exactly this kind of tea, so that's their cup of tea. So for those people who are considering something like that, let's see what the pros and the cons are. For me, this is the fastest and most responsive car that I've driven, TR6 I mean. I know that the TBI doesn't add performance, probably this car has a cam or something, and it has headers obviously, and probably it has other performance stuff in it, I don't know. But the response, the throttle response is amazing, and I'm sure that's based on the TBI system, because you have electronically controlled timing, not only electronically controlled air fuel mixture, and all that is based on the current state of the engine. It's not something that is based on estimations, like in like how much advance do you need at certain RPM. Well, it's not like that, because it's certain RPM but also certain load on the engine, because you can have 2500 RPM at idle, but you can also have 25 RPM at acceleration, and believe me, you need totally different advance for these two situations, and same for the air fuel mixture and all that. So that's the pro. You definitely have a much better acceleration, much faster response, because as soon as you hit the throttle, the ECU knows that you hit the throttle and advances the timing the proper amount. So you also have better emissions, 100%, because you burn the fuel much more efficiently, and you have much better gas mileage, obviously, because again, you're burning the fuel more efficiently. And even though the TBI doesn't add performance, it actually takes 100% out of your engine. Whatever the engine is capable of doing, you're able to take it. All right, David just showed up and picked up his car, so we're gonna finish the video without the car. Anyway, what I was trying to say is that the TBI system doesn't add horsepower, but it allows you to use all the horsepower that your engine has. Just like replacing your flip-flops with running shoes allows you to run faster. I mean, the running shoes don't make you faster, but they allow you to use your body properly, so you can run and do 100% of what you can do. And the TBI is able to do that thanks to its flexibility, because it is capable of adjusting itself to the current state of the engine, and it gives it exactly what it needs. And where on the carbureted engines or mechanical distributors, you have the same pattern. A needle that is with a fixed profile. You can't change that profile. It is what it is. You set it at idle and you hope that at high RPM you're gonna have the right mixture. How do you know that? Like, it is not flexible, and like the engine conditions change all the time, and you're hoping that this needle is the perfect profile for all kinds of conditions. It can't be. It's not flexible. It is fixed. The same way with your centrifugal advance. You have the same pattern. So much advance for idle, and so much advance for 2000 RPM, and so much advance for 4000 RPM. But again, that's a fixed pattern. You can't change it unless you start changing weights and springs and stuff like that. But you can't change that while you're driving, right? Where your TBI is flexible and it adjusts itself to the current state of the engine, and it gives it exactly what it needs. So these are the pros, I think. About cons, I don't know. What can we consider a con? Like, it's expensive. Well, yeah, it's definitely a con for me, because if I don't install it in my car, that would be the only reason, because I can't afford it. But otherwise, I would put it on my GT6. Another con, I know that many people are gonna say reliability. Well, I don't think it's an unreliable system. For some people, when you say electronics and they say, oh, electronics, that's unreliable. Like, if it fails, you can't even take it off the road. We'll talk about that as well, but electronics, like, we are surrounded by electronics. Yes, they fail sometimes, but believe me, the percentage of failed electronics versus the ones that keep going for decades is much smaller than compared to the carburetors and points that leave you on the side of the road so many times. When you read through forums and Facebook groups, how often do you see, as I was driving my car, all of a sudden it lost power and it stalls, and then I start it and it runs for 3 minutes and then it stops again. Our cars, as they are stock, they're also unreliable. I mean, both versions are reliable and unreliable. But now you're gonna say, Yeah, but if my carburetors fail, I can fix them on the side of the road, or if my points fail, I can fix them on the side of the road and cripple my car home. True. You think you can do that with a TBI? Of course you can. If I have it in my car, I will carry around my air pumps from my carburetors, a new set of diaphragms, and a set of points and condenser. God forbid the system fails somehow, the ECU fails or a sensor fails, and I can't fix it on the side of the road. It's gonna take me literally 20 minutes to take the injection adapters out, put my air pumps back in, and put the domes back in. The throttle is still there, the throttle linkage is connected. Well, you don't have choke. Okay, you can choke it manually. And the distributor, if the electronic ignition of the system doesn't work properly, install a set of points. How long is gonna take you? 15 minutes. So in half an hour, you can convert this car back from TBI to carburetors and drive it home, not cripple it home. You can drive it home normally. So I wouldn't consider that a con, because first of all, I don't think it is less reliable than carbureted car. And second, even if we say it is unreliable, it is not so hard to fix it on the side of the road, as many people would say. What is another con? Well, you have to learn a lot of stuff that you didn't know before. Well, for me, knowledge is treasure. I love knowledge. I like learning new stuff. Things like this are a challenge for me, and I accept it with pleasure. It's like solving a crossword puzzle. If you're knowledgeable enough to understand how your stock car works, it is not that hard to learn how this system works as well, and be able to tune it and maintain it. So anyway, these are pros and cons according to me, and I think definitely there's more pros than cons as long as you can afford it. Well, another con, and maybe that's the biggest con for many people, is that it is not original to the car and it takes the magic of the classic car away. But yeah, it takes the magic of the classic car away, just like the electronic ignition does, just like the Richard Good upgraded parts do. Well, these are things that make your car more reliable and more give it more performance and allow you to take the most out of it. So I wouldn't consider even that a con, but for some people that's the con. The car is not original anymore, takes it to a different era. So anyway, enough talking. I think we're gonna leave you on a cliffhanger here. We're gonna wait for the comments from Rick Patton, and I believe there's gonna be some adjustment needed, so we're gonna leave that for another episode. So even though I said that this was gonna be the last episode, I said hopefully. So no, it's not gonna be the last episode, there's gonna be one more. I see that these videos don't make a lot of views anymore. The first one did, but the second didn't, and the third one I'm sure is gonna make even less views, but I'm sure there's a niche audience for these videos as well. So if you're interested, stay tuned for the fourth episode. If not, stay tuned for other things around the garage, because look at this now. We have a TR6 engine taken apart, so stay tuned for that if you're not interested in the TBI. So thank you guys for watching, commenting, subscribing, sharing and supporting the channel. In the description of the video you can find ways to support me if you feel like it, because your support is what keeps me going here with these videos, and otherwise I'm not gonna be able to spend so much time editing them, and I really appreciate that. So if you're interested, go below the video and you will find the different ways that you can use to support me a little. Thank you again, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.